Well, it's July 7th, 7/7/2019, and it's brew day.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
So the focus today is going to be on mash temperatures again. And even though the last two brew days didn't go that badly, I didn't miss my mash temperatures by much, I'm going to go back to underletting. It's a process I used once or twice before, and that's the process I think I want to stay with going forward. So I'm just going to work on that until I dial it in. Preheating the mash tun worked fairly well. I didn't miss mash temperatures by much, but it added length and steps to my brew day, and I want to shorten things, simplify them rather than make them longer and more complex. So mash temperatures is going to be the key focus for today. I'm going to fly sparge the same. I'm going to chill the same, boil the same. Now boil, there's another thing too. I think I've made some mistakes there inadvertently. Boiling. But we'll talk about that as we get to it. Let's go. So the process today is underletting the mash. And that's where you take your hot water, your strike water from your hot liquor tank, and you pump it in to the bottom of your mash tun, which already has grains in it. That way you're flooding the grain bed from the bottom up. It's supposed to give a more even moistening of the grains, eliminate some dough balls, and this is the process I want to use from here on out. So I'm going to just stick with this, and if I have to do any adjusting, it'll be in the temperature of the hot liquor tank of the strike water until I get my mash water where I want it. And eventually, what I hope is that I'll just know how much to heat the strike water every time to get the temperature of the mash that I want for every brew. Goals. Beersmith says to mash in with just over 4.5 gallons of water at just about 158.5 degrees to reach a mash temperature of 148. Now, based on my last experience underletting the mash, I'm going to heat my strike water a little higher than Beersmith recommends. Not a lot, 1.5 degrees. I'm at 160, and let's see what happens. Again, with underletting, the grains go in first. The water is let in from the hot liquor tank into the bottom of the mash tun. Turn on the pump. The tun temperature is 77, 78. I want to reset my mash temperature to 148. And what I want is about 4.5 gallons of water. I've got just under 5 actually. I'll live with that. Now let's check our mash temperature, see how we did. Pretty sure I'm going to be low. I was low last time that I underlet. and I am about 10 degrees low. I'm looking for 148 and I've got 137, 138. So I kind of knew that was going to happen. So I'm going to just recirculate now until I reach my 148 target. Okay, the hoses are all configured to recirculate. I've bumped up the temperature in my hot liquor tank to 170. My mash temperature has climbed to about 142 or 3. And as soon as I get to 148, then I'll begin my mash timer. Today I'm just making a simple little cream ale. Nice summer drinker. Appeals to almost all of the BMC crowd who are not used to homebrew and real beer. I was going to do some water additions today and check pH and play with my new pH meter, but again, I don't want to overcomplicate things. My focus was just hitting the mash temperature today, so all those water agents are scratched out. Pretty simple recipe: brewer's malt, corn, and rice. I usually like to go only 20% of the corn and rice combined, but I went 30% on this one. Should come out well. Are my hops on this sheet? No, this is my brew steps sheet, not the recipe. So I am using lemon drop hops and 1056 yeast. Alright, my mash timer has gone off for the last time. I just mashed out at 168 degrees for 15 minutes. So I'm going to turn the pump off. I'm going to reset all of these hoses for the fly sparge. Alright, I'm just taking a gravity reading with my hydrometer. I've got a Brewing America brand hydrometer, and it's got a thermometer built in at the bottom, and this is telling me my sample is almost 115 degrees. So that's going to be about +9 on the reading here, which is, let me put it on a level surface, read it from eye level, 1030. So if I add 10, I'm at 1040. My refractometer says 1039, so I'm good with 1039, 1040. Beersmith says that I should be at 1040 at this point. So everything has gone well so far. I've got my little over 8.5 gallons. I don't have increments between the gallon marks, but that's real close to between 8 and 9, a little bit higher. So, time to turn the heat back on, put it into boil mode. I want to start at 100%, and as soon as I start boiling, we'll put in our first and only addition of hops. Yeah, after taking those gravity readings, makes me really happy and satisfied with this brew day so far, the way it's going. I followed all of my steps and my procedures. Didn't cut any corners, didn't shave any time off because I got impatient. I mashed and mashed out and sparged according to plan. I must have measured my volumes out right spot on, because I nearly got to the bottom of the hot liquor tank and the mash tun to get precisely my 8.5 gallons of boil. My gravity reading was supposed to be 1040. I got 10:39, so no complaints here. I can just about hear the kettle behind me coming to a boil, so I'm going to start getting ready to add my first addition of hops. I don't know if I've ever mentioned to you Papazian's paradox. You know Charlie Papazian is, don't you? The godfather of homebrewing. Papazian's paradox goes, a watched pot never boils, but an unwatched pot always boils over. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here because this is just about ready to start boiling. Speaking of the boil, I mentioned at the beginning of the video I was going to address a boil issue. My past 4 brews, I was pretty amazed that I could maintain what appeared to be a nice rolling boil by lowering the power to ridiculous levels. It's not uncommon to hear people suggest that once the boil starts, turn the power down to about 70%. But I was able to go to 50%. And the last brew I made, I went down to 30%, and it was still bubbling away. But since then, I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Charlie Bamforth talking about boiling wort and how important it is to have a vigorous boil, which can lead to some off flavors and unwanted characteristics, which is exactly what I got in one of my last brews. I couldn't put my finger on what the off flavor was until he described it exactly in this podcast, and he says it's the result of a less than vigorous boil. I think I had turned my power on my control unit down, and even though it was boiling, it wasn't turning over as much as it should have. So, once this gets up to the boil, once I have tamed the foam and added the hops, I'm going to crank this down to no less than 70%. Turn the power off just briefly. Let some of this fall back down. All right, I think I've got this under control. I'm going to add my hop spider. And I'll put in 1 ounce of lemon drop hops from my local homebrew store, Hopcraft Supply Company in Saginaw, Michigan. 8.6% alpha acid, and that's all I need. Cream ales, you want to keep the IBUs in the 20-something range or less. I've made them as low as 16% IBU, or 16 IBU I should say. I like a little hoppier profile than that, so I'm at 25 something for this one. 25.6, is that what the recipe said? 25.4? Something like that. Power's down to 70%. Hops have been added. It's time to start my 60-minute timer. All right, my timer went off. 15 minutes left in the boil. I've crushed up my Whirlfloc tablet, about 1 1/4 tablets. Adding that to the boil. And I will turn on my my pump that goes to the counterflow chiller, start recycling all this hot wort through there to sanitize it through the pump, through the whirlpool, get a whirlpool going, and 15 more minutes we'll turn the flame off, or the burner element. Yeah, almost done.
Except for the cleaning.
All right, the boil is over. Timer just went off. Turned off the pump, turned on the water, got the counterflow chiller going. It's already dropped down several degrees. I can't read it upside down. But yeah, this will take about 15, 20 minutes maybe to get it down to about 65 degrees. And then I'll take it downstairs, put it in the fermenter, and pitch the yeast. And except for the cleanup, we'll be done. I'll be done. You haven't done a thing. I can't tell if I'm in frame or not. There's just too much glare on the monitor. So let's go through the final statistics. Mash temp at dough end, 10 degrees below target. Fix-up plan, strike it hotter. My mash schedule went as planned, followed everything to the letter. My pre-boil gravity was right on target. 1040 was the estimate, the actual was 1040. My pre-boil volume was on target, but my post-boil volume was slightly low, and that's because of that a higher percentage that I set my power setting at on the control panel. The fix-up plan for that, I have to adjust my equipment profile. My post-boil gravity was on target. The estimate was 1051. The actual was 1051. My volume into the fermenter a little bit low. I planned on 6, and I got between 5 and 5.5. The only fix for that, again, is to fix my Beersmith equipment profile. That's on me. Yeah, that's the story. The beer is in the fermenter. I'm about to go pitch the yeast as soon as it chills down a little bit farther to about 64. I had to keg the beer that was already in the fermenter to make room for this one. It was a Kentucky Common. It's in the keg. Sample tasted great. Have a little bit more information on that as it gets ready to serve. So there you go. Brew day is over. One more time, this time with feeling.